Hello and welcome back to AdaPulse, the community-funded news channel keeping you up to date with everything Cardano. And because we are community-funded, there is no coin chilling, there is no paid promotion, we don't even discuss token price. On this episode of Exploring Cardano, I talked to Tom and Gabe from Summon Platform, the most powerful and advanced DAO tooling software kit on Cardano. I hope you enjoy. Can you guys tell us something about yourself, where you're based, and what your background is? Let's start with Tom.
Cool. Yeah. So my name's Tom, TCT. A lot of people know me by. I myself am in South Florida, born and raised, but we have, obviously team members from all over the world. And yeah, I'm really, I've sort of been in the forefront of bringing this to the community, getting the conversations going, educating people on what we're actually building, and now getting to really educate people and help people learn how to use it and leverage a lot of these tools.
And Gabe?
Yeah, my name's Gabe. I'm a DAO core contributor and a proud Summon team member. I do a lot of the operational stuff and kind of like work with our ambassadors and basically whatever we need to do, and a lot of internal stuff and, like I said, some ambassador stuff. I'm in Connecticut, so I'm in the East Coast, same as Tom is, just quite north of him with a lot crappier weather. But besides that, we're in the same time zone, and yeah.
Great. So, can you give me a short introduction on Summon and how it came about?
Yeah, I could take it. So Summon really came from, I like to say came from within ADAO. If you don't mind me going back real quick, about over a year and a half ago now, when Cardano first started, getting smart contracts, people were experimenting with Plutus. We realized that even though we didn't need Plutus for it, we still didn't have things like basic multi-signature wallets. We didn't have these basic coordination tools that you need as a group of people trying to operate a project or something on the blockchain. So that's really how ADAO started, and we did that for over a year as just a community project, an open source passion project where we would incentivize contributions with governance over this organization, ADAO. So it's amazing, it's still going strong today, but as a true open source organization that lives on the blockchain, we can't really interact with the real world, quote unquote, right? We don't have an organization in a jurisdiction. It lives on Cardano. So we realized we needed something like Summon. We needed to seek out clear regulation in some of these jurisdictions where we see crypto and blockchain, being able to innovate. So from there, we actually formed a Swiss association, the Summon Association, and a few of the core members from ADAO as well started a development company to actually build the platform, Summon. So all of this open source work we had been doing for the past year and a half, Summon is really bringing that to the forefront by providing infrastructure necessary to run this. So Summon can now, set up servers, create and host a platform to where people can come and now easily access all of this tooling instead of having to deploy it themselves.
Great. Yeah, so let's dive a bit deeper into the sort of the features of Summon. What would you say is sort of the number one feature that sort of shines on Summon?
Sorry, I have my dog with me.
Yeah, well, I mean, so as you probably know, we're testing right now. We're on testnet about a week, and what is the number one feature? I'm not sure if there's a number one feature or anything, but I think a lot of people are looking forward to the voting platform, the fee-free voting, um, and the polling stuff that is kind of being tested right now. So people that are assigning communities, kind of like testing how to build a community, and then creating polls within that community, and then using the voting feature. So I'm not sure if there's a best feature. We're planning on adding lots of features, but as we roll out, we will, the MVP, we want the communities to test and see, what they need. Like, like Tom said, we started in ADAO building and solving problems for people and building them tools that they needed. So now here's, we're a year down the road from or more, and it's a good chance for people to give us real raw feedback. We're getting some really great feedback from, we were in ScatDAO Discord earlier, Eric from ScatDAO and a couple of those guys giving some great feedback. They use the roundtable multi-sig. So I don't know if that answers your question about the best feature, but those are a couple of the features that are being tested. Tom could probably add.
Yeah, and I apologize. You might have to do some editing. My dog was eating something she shouldn't be, and I got my mute mixed up. But
No
yeah,
problem.
I would.
Dogs are going to be dogs.
Yep. The only thing I would add is like, I think, yeah, like Gabe said, I think obviously the ability to deploy private or large scale polls for free, so not having to worry about transaction fees is a huge feature, right? Right now, 90% of projects on Cardano have some form of governance or voting or signaling. So a lot of them have hundreds, sometimes thousands of members. So, having to pay a transaction fee for every vote you make becomes really expensive, really cumbersome. So the fee-free voting, where you actually leverage SIP8 and sign a message to cast your vote. That way it's still cryptographically verified. You're just not spending that transaction fee. I think that's going to be a huge feature. And we're already seeing that one be really the most used during the testnet phase. But obviously the multi-sig feature as well, right? So Gabe mentioned Roundtable, which is some open source work from ADAO. It's a multi-sig dApp. It leverages Cardano native scripts. So Summon really provides the same thing, although it's a little different because it's built on the Lucid framework. So it's a little different than the Roundtable one. You could say it's a little more user-friendly, right? It fits right into the nice, pretty Summon interface. So those two features together, personally, is what I think are the strongest, right? I think that's what most projects, most communities are going to leverage, and I think it's really going to become the foundation for any project, whether it's community governed or not, right? There's usually more than one person running a project, and so in that case, you need to be able to, share custody of assets, of funds, make decisions, right? So I think those two features together are really what makes Summon so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong. So, sort of to summarize, Summon is basically a sort of a one-stop shop for anyone trying to set up governance for their project on Cardano.
Right. Yeah. Not only governance, but managing funds. Right. Managing assets. Definitely.
Sure. Yeah, because you have a sort of a treasury feature, right? Which could you talk a little bit more about that? How can you lock up funds? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's a couple different features, really. So we have native script multisigs, which are great because unlike Pluto scripts, they're very simple. They were available well before smart contracts on Cardano. And so there's no real audit surface. Anybody can easily verify the logic of a native script. And that's a way to, very easily jointly manage funds. So me, you, and Gabe can take our existing Cardano wallets, combine them, generate a native script, and now our signatures are all attached to that native script, and we could set the logic to where 2 out of 3 of us are required to spend from that address. So that way, anytime we want to spend funds, at least 2 of us have to agree. So that's probably the most secure and simplest way to secure funds jointly. But other than that, you can deploy smart contracts or plutoscripts to do this. Something like Agora, where the treasury or the UTXO, the script that these funds are held in, is not controlled by our signatures. Now it's controlled by tokens. So you'll need a majority of these tokens to then move funds. And that could be for anything, right? Not just funds. So it can get as simple as complex as you want it. But the native script multisig is definitely, I think, the strongest feature when it comes to managing funds, managing assets.
And I think sort of a big worry of a lot of investors when they're looking into projects or participating in projects is sort of the team funds and that vesting period. A lot of projects have this sort of vesting period which they've promised for funds, but that's actually not locked up in smart contracts. It's sort of just agreed that we'll try and do this, and you've got to just trust them. Is there a way to implement that in smart contracts?
Yeah, definitely. That's actually something that I know DAO has been working on. They got funded for making a vesting DApp through Catalyst. And there's a couple different ways you can do that, but I think a specific vesting DApp is probably the best option for that right now. Yeah, you're seeing some of these more serious teams use something like Roundtable, which is the native script multisig. So the tokens aren't vested, but you can be assured that, like I said, at least 2 out of 3 or at least 3 out of 5 have to actually send these tokens. But ideally, like you said, you would want a Plutus contract. And so once that becomes available and that proposal is completed, that's something that we're looking to integrate into Summon. So you can do that right from the platform.
So with Cardano, we're moving into sort of the final stage of governance and sort of giving it back to the community with the MBO. And we've seen recently with the discussions about contingent staking that sort of governance is going to be a pretty important issue going forward. What does good governance look like, and why is it important?
Yeah. I mean, I think you'll get different answers from both of us or everyone, really. I think it's such a difficult question to answer, right? I think a lot of times, what I will say is, like, we get sort of stuck on this voting, right? And, I think for the most part, consensus or the decisions or good governance takes place long before any vote is cast, right? You have to be communicating. You have to have, passionate members. You have to have people there and incentivized for the right reasons. So I think a lot of times, like, especially with newer projects, and when, we're in a bull market, we see a lot of, incentives that aren't really aligned with what the long-term vision is, or at least what they say the long-term vision is as a lot of these projects. So we get what's called bad governance, right? Really silly decisions being made. There's a ton of examples. So I think good governance is just that, right? It's having good open communication and dialogue, right? In a place where people can actually, feel that their voice is heard, not just because they have a token or because they can vote, but because they have a place to really, talk and get to know other members and like I said, voice their opinions and be involved.
Yeah, it's all about community. Gabe, you got anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I would, I think that communities are a big thing, and that, a lot of this, the management that we're trying to problem solve at Summon is just a combination of a lot of the Discord governance, the Twitter, the notions, just all of these things that people are using and kind of testing right now. And I think that we can. I know your question was what does governance mean, and I think a lot of us are learning what the most effective tools are, and that's what we're trying to do at Summit is hone in on what's effective with each and every community. There's no real answer. A lot of people, in terms of the voting, there's some notions to one person, one vote. There's some notions to different ways of voting. So there's lots of different discussions going on, which are healthy, and in the end, I think Cardano has the edge in a lot of governance stuff anyway. There's a group of people in Colorado, as we are doing this interview, 20 or 30 deep, that are talking about SIP 1694 and how to really improve governance, IOHK, and people are out there right now, talking about it. So I think we're on the right track, and I think that, someone will touch on some of the stuff that ADAO did for over a year and in that community. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So most projects are looking to move to sort of a decentralized method of governance. However, what most projects fail to achieve is to actually have a lot of participation in governance. And obviously, if you don't have a high level of participation in governance, then your votes, in a way, aren't really valid when you have only 2 or 3 whales sort of voting and swaying everything. How do you drive and incentivize participation?
Yeah, I think I sort of touched on this before. I think that's the most important thing, right? I think how you incentivize that behavior is the type of behavior you're going to get, the type of people you're going to get. So I think that's probably the most difficult part, and I don't think there's a good answer for that, right? But I think if you do have a unique situation where you are able to really incentivize passionate people, and you have a genuine mission, then you can do some pretty amazing things. That's what we did with ADAO, for example. ADAO never sold the token. We gave them out strictly for contributions. And, it's been, beyond what I could have ever imagined. And so, I'm trying to take a lot of that same, thought process, or, I guess it's hindsight now, what I've learned and seen to Summon, and really trying to, build that into the foundation of, like, why should you be interested in Summon? Well, it's not for a lot of the same reasons that we see a lot of projects, right? It's that you care about governance, that you care about a lot of these tools, and like Gabe said, 1694. So I think that's just the main important part that, I try to keep forefront, is that, let's make sure we are incentivizing what we're actually after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you build large communities and greatly value their input and let them build and not dictate, you'll get people to be interested in making the decisions. And if you make the tools that are, to make these decisions easy, clear, concise, you'll probably incentivize more people. You can look at all the platforms, some of the hottest ones right now. Indigo, they have some quorums. You can look at the traction that they get. They get a lot of the big voting. You can look at the team member voting and the community voting. You can look at Sunday Swap just ran a poll. They got in the thousands. So we're talking like in the thousands here. We're not talking in the hundreds of thousands. So I think the verdict is still out. The tools are still being built to make this even easier. But the main thing is you have to have the community around you that wants to develop and help make these decisions. I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. So what we've seen with a lot of projects on Cardano is that initially they sort of build their project, they do their tokenomics, and now a lot of them are focusing on sort of governance and building a DAO. If you're starting a project today, what should you start focusing on? Should you build your project and then sort of look at governance, or should you be interweaving sort of the DAO, the governance from the get-go? Obviously, projects that launched in 2022, there wasn't the infrastructure for it, and they were trying to get their project off the ground. But how would you integrate a DAO or a style of governance into a project that's starting now? What advice would you give?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. It's making me think because, right away I would have said, obviously don't worry about governance first, right? Get, something to show, right? Show something, do some work, show your work. But like you said, I think that's because last year when we did start ADAO, we didn't have any of these tools. It was very difficult just to do a simple vote amongst a few people. So, I think both of those, methods could be right. But I think it is important to sort of, make sure you have a foundation, like a mission, right? Know what you're actually, setting out to do. Because if you do just sort of, go decentralized from day one, a lot of times we'll run into these issues where everybody just sort of sits around, right, and does nothing because there's no leadership, there's no mission, there's no common goals. So that's really important. I think maybe a little of both, but I do think it's really important to leverage these tools, right? Even if it's just between 2 or 3 people, getting yourself comfortable with and, leveraging, Cardano, because that's why we're here, is really important for security, for transparency, and to sort of get you into and used to, like you said, good governance. So, I'll have to think about that. I might have a different answer, a few months down the line, after I've sort of experienced both routes.
Mm-hmm. What's one of the biggest challenges that you guys have faced so far?
Yeah, some of the biggest challenges, I think, when we have a test net now, is kind of just getting people to give us lots of feedback. A lot of the work has been poured in, a lot of the dev team has spent months and months, and now it's kind of pushing it out there. I think Tom would probably agree that our team is, if you were to rate, like a marketing and branding versus a more of a building and tool set team, I think we build and do kind of more of the building versus the branding and marketing. What I'm trying to say is we're stronger at building products kind of internally and fine tuning than showing off some of the tools. So it's time to kind of get the feedback. I mean, we're hoping to get thousands of people through, the test net for multiple weeks so that we can really get the feedback. How does it look, and how does it feel, and what fine tuning needs to be done. And then, working, as a team from all over the world. And the only, I think, IRL meetup that we ever had, Tom, was maybe at Rare Bloom, and that was a couple of the team members. Maybe half of the team was there. So, we're building what we think to be an amazing product, all remote, with a lot of people around different parts of the world. So kind of getting everyone's input and communication and getting everyone on the same page while building something like this. Not that it's a challenge, but it's tough to kind of get everyone together. So we use, like everyone, Discord, Zoom, all the channels that we can. But yeah, those are some of the things I would say. Tom could probably add to that. Yeah.
I mean, coordination is huge. That's what a lot of these tools are, trying to help us with, is really just coordinating people. I think in reality, probably the most just stressful and difficult thing is seeking out clear regulation, right? It's very easy to do things just on chain, but then when you want to, like I said earlier, operate in this quote unquote real world, it's very hard to get correct answers, even from experts. And so, you end up spending, sometimes months on just researching regulations, right? And you end up spending a lot of money just talking to attorneys and experts. And so it's really frustrating. I think that's the most difficult thing to be aware of. And then, like Gabe said, just coordination, making sure we are sort of communicating properly. Team morale is a big one, right? It's not too glamorous, right? As we see on Twitter sometimes, I think. So, just a lot of building, a lot of sort of late nights, trying to keep team morale up, and obviously coordinating everybody.
Sure, yeah, I understand regulation is probably a big problem, and I hear it from a lot of the teams, especially because a lot of the time there isn't any regulation, so you're sort of speculating on what is going to be put in, and then regulation's always changing, although Switzerland's probably the best place to be currently, especially for decentralized organizations. They've got the sort of one of the clearest pictures out there. So sort of last question. So apart from ADAO and Summon, looking back on 2022, what developments and events did you find most exciting? And looking forward to 2023, what are you looking forward to?
Do you want to go first, Gabe?
Yeah. So you said apart from Summon and ADAO, what are we looking forward to in 2023? Was that the question?
Yeah, so what was some of the best developments and events from 2022, and what are you looking forward to in 2023?
Copy. Okay, I got the question. Yeah, I would say hands down, one of the greatest highlights of 2022 was the Rare Bloom event in Colorado that I went to for 3 days. There was about a year and a half spent of just studying Cardano on my end, and a lot of the projects, Liquid, Meld, Clay Nation, Space Buds, anything that was on Cardano. And then I got a chance to kind of actually see some of the people that were behind it. So when you kind of spend all this time in Twitter, and then you go out and see people like TCT and Cardano Over Coffee and Lido Nation and some of these people that you spend a lot of time with, it's pretty validating. And although it wasn't like a consensus sized event, it was pretty cool to see a couple thousand people attending a Cardano event, which will go cross chain this year in August to a couple of other blockchains. So I think that was a really, really big highlight. And in 2023, I hope that we get some clarity on what we can and can't do in blockchain. I think I'm looking forward to some answers, because every week we turn around, we just get this gloom and doom, and at least in the United States. So I'm looking for some regulatory clarity and going back to Rare Evo as well in 2023 with our team and many other teams. Hopefully you'll be there too.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, I would obviously second the rare event. There was just so many things, too many things to name. I think aside from all the stuff with Summon and ADAO, I think it might have been early this year, but SIP 68 I think is really important. We've already just thought so much and have started to kind of think about so much we can do around that. There's a lot of really new development frameworks and tools. Icon is a big one, and Lucid, obviously. So Lucid is something that just helped us out tremendously, and I think it was just a huge driver to put us over the edge and actually get this platform launched. So those two things or three things I think are just huge, and those are all from community developers, right? Open source developers, just like the guys in ADAO. So I think that's probably what I found most important last year. And then this year obviously hoping for clear regulation and really hoping for sort of just a repeat of last year. Like if 2023 can be as good as last year when it comes to, you know, the morale of the community, I think most importantly, it'll be huge, and I think we'll be on the right track.